Wel, croeso twym galon I chi gyd I Ieithoedd Cymru 2014. A very warm welcome to you all to Languages Wales 2014. Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. Mae ddeuwch I fi bod fi'n gwneud hyn yn uniaith Saesneg, fel bod pawb yn deall. There is no fire bell scheduled for today, but should the fire alarm go off, then the fire exits are behind you, as you can see. You will see the fire exits also clearly marked in some of the breakout rooms, which are rooms 7 and 8 here, where the iPad session will be happening, and the other two sessions will be happening in room 4. So you'll see clearly where the fire exits are there for you. The loos, if you haven't found them already, are past the reception where you came in on the right-hand side. And in terms of drinks and refreshments during the day, it's quite a tight timetable. We haven't got a break actually during the morning, this morning, but please do help yourselves to water, coffee, teas and so on. You know, you're welcome to get up and go out and have a drink, have a bit of fresh air during any of the sessions, and just bring the drinks back into the session rooms with you. Can I urge you all as well to stay for the plenary session, because we do have some information that we'd like to share with you at the end of the day, and we will be collecting evaluations from you as well. We've got some exciting new resources, for example, we want to show you. We've got some events and meetings that will be happening between now and March that you will need to know about. So please do stay to the end of the day if you can. Felly, o ran trefn y dydd, os allai dynnu sylw chi at taflen yn eich pecyn, can I draw your attention to the programme in your packs? There's quite a bit of bits of paper in there, but if you can find the programme. Da ni wedi trefnu sawl siaradwr ysbrydoledig a phrofiadol ar eich cyfer chi, yn cynnwys ymarferwyr ac ymgynghorwyr fel Kate Ford, Greg Horton, Greg fan hyn, Steve Glover, neisod yn y cefn fan hyn, sydd yn arwain y gad dros y ffin y maes addysgu a dysgu ieithoedd tramor. Hefyd, bydd trawstoriad o athrawon blaengar sydd gennym ni yma yng Nghymru. Megis Nia Rowlands a Rhian Griffiths, heb gyrraedd eto ond fy nhw yma, pnawn yma gyfer eu sesiwn nhw o Ysgol Bro Morgannwg. Ceri Anwen James o Ysgol Bro Eden, Melanie Gill, Ysgol Aberteileri, Gillian Moorclough, Ysgol Caergybi, ac Alison MacLeod o Ysgol Caerllion. Rhaid hefyd estyn diolch i'r partneriaid eraill sy'n siarad heddiw, sy'n cynnwys tîm Llwybrau Cymru, Annie ac Eli, gyda chi, rhywle falle wedi gwneud stafell yn paratoi yn barod, Alex Pickering o'r Goethe Institute, yr athro Julian Priest o Think German Wales, o Prifysgol Abertawe, yn ogystal â'n partneriaid ehangach ni sy'n arddangos deunyddiau yn cynnwys cybac, ac yn y llaw fydd cybac yn dangos rhai deunyddiau cyffroes newydd ar gyfer un sy'n trafod yma mewn sesiwn eitha anffurfiol amser cinio ar y sgrin fawr. Yr Consejeriad Edicathion fydd yma'n hwyrach yn ystod y dydd a yn ogystal â'n cynhoeddwyr eraill. Diolch yn fawr i chi gyd am gyfrannu. So we've arranged a number of inspiring experienced speakers for you today, including practitioners and advisors like Kate Ford, Greg Horton and Steve Glover, who are leading the way across the board in the field of languages, teaching and learning. Also, we have a cross-section of innovative teachers we have here in Wales, like Nia Rowlands and Rhian Griffiths from Ysgol Bro Morgannwg, Ceri Anwen James from Ysgol Bro Eden, Melanie Gill from Aberteileri School, Gillian Moorclough, Holyhead School, and Alison MacLeod from Caerllion Comprehensive School. Can I also thank our other contributions from other partners today, including the Roots into Languages team, Ellie and Annie, Alex Pickering from the Goethe Institute, Professor Julian Priest from Think German Wales at Swansea University, as well as our wider partners who are exhibiting resources for you here today, including the WJC, who will be doing a session during lunchtime, quite an informal session over lunch, showing you some exciting new resources that are available for MFL teachers. And also thank you to our other publishers that are here today, and the Consejeriad Edicathion who will be in later today. Now, welwch chi hefyd bod gen I ni ddisgyblion yma heddiw o Ysgol Aberteileri a Ysgol Bro Eden. Ac efallai mai dyma sy'n atgoffa ni orau o bwrpas y gynhadledd hon, a'n gwaith ni o ddydd i ddydd yn fyfyrwyr tar, yn athrawon ieithoedd profiadol, yn ymgynghorwyr neu'n randdeiliaid eraill, sef sicrhau bod disgyblion mewn ysgolion yng Nghymru yn cael profiadau gwerthfawr a phwrpasol wrth ddysgu ein pwnc ni. Meithrin agweddau positif tuat ddysgu ieithoedd a sicrhau bod yn cyrraedd y safonau gorau posib wrth iddyn symud ymlaen yn ei dysgu, ei gyrfa dewisol a'i bywydau fel dinasyddion Cymru, Ewrop a'r byd. You will also see that we have some pupils here today from Abertillery School and Ysgol Bryweden, and perhaps they're the ones who remind us best of the purpose of this conference, as well as our day-to-day work as PGC students, experienced teachers, advisors, and wider stakeholders, which is to ensure that pupils in schools across Wales have valuable and purposeful opportunities to learn foreign languages, to instil positive attitudes towards learning languages, and to ensure that they reach the best possible standards as they move on to further learning, their chosen careers, and their lives as citizens of Wales, Europe, and the world. Does dim dwywaith bod sialensau yn ein gwynebu ni ar hyn o bryd o ran sicrhau niferoedd disgyblion yn astudio ieithoedd tramor yn un yn nhw. Ac efallai nad oes quick fix i'r sialens gymleth yma, ond yn sicr mae tîm Sil Cymru yn credu mai drwy gydweithio a chynnal ein gilydd, drwy bartneriaethau, rhwydweithio, rhannu arfer orau a dysgu o'n gilydd, a gall athrawon, ysgolion, consortia yn ogystal â Llywodraeth Cymru wneud camau positif i'n galluogi ni i wynebu'r heriau hyn a gwneud gwahaniaeth cadarnhaol. There's no doubt that there are challenges facing us. At this point in time, least of all to ensure the uptake of languages amongst pupils, and perhaps there is no quick fix to this complex challenge. But the Sil Cymru team firmly believes that by working together, supporting each other through partnerships, networking, sharing best practice, and learning from each other, we can, as teachers, advisors, and consortia, as well as Welsh Government, make positive steps which enable us to face these challenges and make a real difference. Yn ystod y blynyddoedd diwethaf, mae'r ysgolion sydd wedi cydweithio mewn partneriaeth y Sil Cymru a'r partneriaid wedi llwyddo codi niferoedd a rhai yn sylweddol. A mae'r holl waith hyn yn deillio o waith difluno athrawon ieithoedd tramor fel chi i wella addysgu a dysgu, enghraifft drwy prosiectau llyfrau triphlyg, drwy greu cysylltiadau gyda'n pencampwyr ieithoedd busnes, cynnal sgyrsiau neu wersi gyrfaoedd yn rhan o gynlluniau gwaith, i godi ymwybyddiaeth disgyblion o werth sgiliau ieithoedd tramor yn y gweithle, cymryd mantais o gysylltiadau gwerthfawr gyda Prifysgolion Cymru drwy'r prosiect llwybrau, sy'n darparu digwyddiadau cystadlaethau a phrosiectau cyffroes allgyrsiol i disgyblion fel y Spelling Bee a chyfathrebu gyda llysgynhadon ieithoedd sy'n fyfyrwyr. During the last year alone, schools who've worked in partnership with Sil Cymru and our partners have succeeded in raising uptake, and some quite significantly. Here are some of our good news stories last year alone, and these are just a small selection of them. And all this work stems from tireless work of teachers like yourselves to improve teaching and learning through projects like the Triple Literacy Project, through developing links with our business language champions, hosting careers talks, or undertaking careers-based activities as part of their schemes of work in order to raise pupils' awareness of the value of foreign languages in the workplace. Taking advantage of valuable links with universities through the Roots into Languages project, which provides events, competitions, and exciting extracurricular opportunities with student language ambassadors and the Spelling Bee as examples. Here are some more positive messages. Cadarnhaol hefyd oedd derbyn y neges hyn gan Hugh Lewis ar eich cyfer heddiw. Also heartening was receiving this message from Hugh Lewis. Learning a language can literally open up a world of experiences. We want our children to be able to flourish globally, to be able to take every opportunity, personal or professional, that comes their way. As you are all aware, I recently asked Professor Graham Donaldson to review the curriculum and assessment arrangements here in Wales. This includes MFL. Professor Donaldson will be reporting to me in early 2015, and I look forward to his recommendations. Though I can't be with you today, I would like to wish you all the very best with your conference. So he is aware of what we're doing, he is aware that we're here today, and hopefully he'll be thinking about us today, but unfortunately he wasn't able to be with us. Edrychwn ymlaen felly at glywed newyddion cadarnhaol pellach gan Lywodraeth Cymru am sut maen nhw'n bwriadu hyrwyddo'r drive i ddatblygu sgiliau ieithoedd tramor yn sgil adolygiad y cwricwlwm a cymwysterau eraill yng Nghymru. We therefore look forward to hearing further positive news from Welsh Government about how they intend to support the drive to develop pupils' MFL skills in light of the curriculum review and qualifications review. Ac ar y nodyn hynny, hoffwn i estyn croeso mawr i Kathryn bod i'r llwyfan, a gallwch darllen gyda llaw am Kathryn yn eich papurau yn eich ffolderi, ond mae yma heddiw i roi blas i ni o'r gwaith ymchwil mae wedi bod yn rhan ohono'n ddiweddar ar ran y Cyngor Prydeinig. Mae'n yn adnabod y 10 iaith y bydd ei hangen fwyaf yn y Deyrnas Unedig yn ystod y gymlynedd nesaf. So on that note, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Kathryn Board, our keynote speaker, to the stage. And you can read about Kathryn, as well as our other speakers actually, in the pack. You have an outline of all our speakers and their backgrounds. But briefly, she's here today to give us an insight into recent research she's been involved in on behalf of the British Council, which identified the top 10 languages needed in the UK over the next 20 years. Lle groeso i Kate Ford. Diolch.
Good morning. I hope nobody minds, but I will give this talk in English only because my Welsh would not go very far, so I hope you'll bear with me. About 6 months ago, I was on my way to a school visit, and I had to take a taxi, and the taxi driver asked me what I did, why was I going to visit this school, and I tried to explain that my area of work was promoting languages and encouraging young people everywhere to learn languages. And the taxi driver laughed and he said, well, that's not much of a job. He said, you know, you're kind of wasting your time because everybody in the world speaks English, so why would you want to bother learning a language? That was rather demotivating. When I got to the school, it was a primary school. One of the purposes of visiting the primary school was to see how the school was preparing to introduce languages at Key Stage 2, which is now statutory in England. And the head teacher was very bothered and said to me, I don't know why we have to teach languages. Most of my kids hardly speak English, so why on earth do I have to teach them another language? And I think there are two examples there of some of the challenges that we face as language teachers, language advisors, specialists in the learning of languages. And I'm sure all of you know all the reasons why languages are important, why they're valuable to young people. But I thought you might like to hear a little bit about a piece of research that I was involved in for the British Council, as Mia said, which perhaps gives you a bit more evidence if you face some of the kind of challenges that I have just described from my own experience. A piece of research that I did with a colleague called Teresa Tinsley. We both used to work for SILT, the National Centre of Languages, and the British Council last year asked us to undertake a piece of research called Languages for the Future. The research question that we were posed was, which languages does the UK need most and why? It's very important to say there was absolutely no question of any language being considered better than any other language. All languages were regarded as of equal value, but the British Council asked us to look across the board at a wide range of evidence to try to stimulate the debate about the languages that our 4 United Kingdom countries would need. There were a number of features that we were asked to consider in the research. The first was that the research had to look over a 20-year period, so from now 20 years hence. What were we going to need if we were to be a successful, competitive, secure group of countries? We needed to reflect the needs and the wants of all sectors. So we had to look at business, we had to look at government, we had to look at education sector and at public wants and needs as well. There was no intention, as I said, to come up, and it would be impossible really, to come up with a definitive answer, but it's got to be these languages in this order. We developed a set of criteria, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute, and we drew on a wide source of different sources of evidence. But other researchers could have put together a different set of criteria, scored it in a slightly different way. So what we wanted to do was to stimulate the debate, not to come up with a final kind of conclusion. And two things we had to do. One was we had to do a very systematic review of all the evidence that was available to us across a wide range of sectors. And the second was that we had to try to make sure that the criteria that we were making assessments against were balanced and broad. I don't know, you probably can't see that column, can you very well? So maybe I'll just read it out. We used the top 4 criteria were economic criteria. And they were, I'm just reading them out because the writing is very small. The current UK export trade, the language needs of UK business, the government's future trade priorities, and emerging high growth markets. So there were 4 economic criteria, which we balanced with 4 educational, social and cultural criteria, which were diplomatic and security priorities, the public's language interests, outward and inward tourism, and the government's international education strategy priorities. And then we used 2 other criteria to balance those. One was the levels of English proficiency in the countries that we were looking at, and the prevalence of internet use in a particular language. So 10 criteria all together. And should you be interested in a detailed analysis of how we came up with this criteria, you can find them in the published report, which is available both in hard copy and also online. I'll give you the online link to it at the end of the talk. In terms of evidence, there was a lot of desk research to be done. So we used, as you can see on the right-hand side there, we used trade figures from the Office of National Statistics. We used CBI reports on education and skills, which come out every year. We used government strategies, such as the International Education Strategy. We used reports from the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills. We used reports from Ernst Young and from Goldman Sachs about the new growth markets around the world, countries like the BRICS countries, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, Vietnam, countries like that. We used a report published by the British Academy called Lost for Words, which looked at Britain's diplomatic and security needs. We used inward and outward tourism figures from Visit Britain. We used surveys of language courses taken by adults across the 4 UK countries. We used an English proficiency index and also internet statistics. And it might like to interview, the internet statistics are very interesting because in the year 2000, the percentage of internet usage in English was 51% of all internet usage. In 2014, it is only 28% in English. So English has gone down from 51 to 28%. And Chinese is now only 4% behind English at 24%. So the patterns of internet usage in the world are changing quite radically. Okay. So when you added up you took all the evidence that you had and you mapped them against the criteria, we came up with two rather different pictures if we only used economic data or if we used the cultural, educational and diplomatic purposes criteria. If you only used the economic criteria, one of the things that we thought was quite interesting was that the first three languages, German, French and Spanish, correlate pretty well with the three main languages taught in schools in the United Kingdom. However, you will notice that the language right at the top is German. And if you look at evidence from a wide range of surveys and other research, you will know that German is the language that is declining the most quickly of those three and is now the third of the three main European languages taught in our schools. So there's something what's happening in schools is not quite what the economic research would tell us. You'll also notice that if you just look at the economic criteria, languages such as Dutch and Swedish also figure as important languages, as well as Mandarin Chinese in fifth place. However, if you look at the criteria on the right-hand side, which are the languages for cultural, educational and diplomatic purposes, you get quite a different pattern. The top three languages are Spanish, Arabic and Portuguese. Chinese is in fifth place again, in exactly the same place as it is economically. But languages such as Dutch and Swedish don't feature. Languages such as Italian, Turkish and Farsi are there instead. So there's a different pattern if you separate the economic criteria from the educational and social criteria. But when you add in the two balancing criteria of proficiency in English in those countries and also the internet usage, then you come up with this, which was our final kind of top 10 languages. And just in case you can't read that, Spanish came out top, then Arabic, then French, Mandarin Chinese in fourth place, then German, Portuguese, Italian, Russian, Turkish and Japanese. And as I said, there is no right or wrong answer, and if you used a different set of criteria, I'm sure you could come up with something that looks slightly different. But we were based on the analysis that we did and the desk research that we did across all these reports and all these evidence, this was the pattern that came out. Interestingly enough, at about the same time, there was a YouGov survey which asked people across the United Kingdom the question, which, if any, of the following languages can you speak well enough to hold a conversation? And the answers were as follows. And I'll try and read it out against that list because it's very difficult to see. 4% of the population said that they spoke Spanish well enough to hold a conversation. 1% of the population could speak enough Arabic to hold a conversation. 15% could hold a conversation in French. 1% in Mandarin Chinese. 6% in German, and so on, all the way down the list. And I think that's, as I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but if you are a policymaker, if you're planning long-term language strategies or introducing languages in school, you can see that there's quite a big gap between the languages that it looks as if the country needs and wants, and what's actually happening amongst the population in the country. We were asked as well to come up with some recommendations in our research. And these are the ones, this is what we came up with. First of all, for policymakers, that it would be beneficial to have a much more strategic approach to education policy, and I'm sure you will recognise this, something that actually goes beyond the life of a single government. And I'm sure as people involved in education, you see that every time there's a change of government, everything kind of goes out the window and a whole load of new stuff comes in. So actually planning for a longer period would be beneficial all round, because it would give us the opportunity to achieve results, and it would give us a coherence and a consistency. There were a number of recommendations for business, which were that business should be much more involved in languages and language teaching, language learning, and that business, which claims, if you look at the CBI reports, which say that employers want languages, well, perhaps they might like to invest a little more, particularly as there's so little other financial resource around for languages. If it's a skill that is valued by employers, perhaps they would like to help to create people who can use languages when they go into employment. There's another one, which is this one about adding new languages and a greater focus on culture. Some research which we've recently done into the learning of Chinese, talking to a lot of employers, they say they don't want necessarily fluent speakers of other languages. They want people who can balance language skills, which are not fluent, not necessarily perfect, but have a really good cultural understanding, so that they can operate well in business situations. So a balance of language and culture is preferable to simply language skills from a business point of view. We also recommended that the language skills of our diaspora and minority communities should be used much more effectively. 11% of secondary school pupils have another language already, and very often this is kind of ignored or certainly not developed and encouraged as they go into the world of employment. And then we had a number of recommendations for schools, which was about schools, especially in a time when there are fewer resources around, should really try to exploit the resources available. Resources like foreign language assistance, and a lot of the support that is provided by cultural institutes, the Goethe Institute, the Consejería de Educación, the Hanban, other cultural institutes are really, really happy and keen to work with schools and have some fantastic resources and opportunities for learners, particularly learners who may not have the opportunity to do school exchanges and visits and things like that. And then just finally, at the bottom, there are, I don't know how many of you know about the campaign for Languages Speak to the Future, but have a look at it online. It's a really good campaign to promote languages and support languages. There's a competition there called 1,000 Words that was promoted at the Languages Show last year called Learn a Language. And another competition I came across yesterday, I don't know how many of you know it, called Language Perfect. I saw a school in Liverpool that had taken part in this online, I think it's an international competition, which is a translation competition between English and loads of other languages. This particular school that I saw in Liverpool said it had taken them by storm, and they'd come first in Europe, and the kids were so motivated and excited by it. So that's another one maybe to have a look at. Okay, and then just finally, if you're interested in the report, as I said, you can find it on the British Council website. You can there look in detail at the criteria we used and how we did the scoring for each particular one. It's not a difficult read. It won't take you very long. And there's some quite interesting case studies for the individual languages that came out in the top 10 as well. That's finished about Language for the Future, but I've got one more message which is really important for those of you that are working in schools. I'm working with a colleague on this year's Language Trends Survey. In England, we've been doing a survey for many years, and we're introducing the survey for the first time in Wales this year. And we've emailed, and we've written to and emailed all secondary schools in Wales and asked you to fill the survey in. It gives you the opportunity to say what's happening with languages in your school, and it gives you the chance as teachers to say what you think should happen or what you think about what policymakers are doing. So it's a great chance to get your voice heard to your policymakers. So please, if you haven't filled it in, please fill it in. We've got some hard copies here, which I think you will have picked up this morning at registration. Could you either fill it in at lunchtime? It might seem like you might want to eat sandwiches instead of filling it in. But if you fill it in by hand, could you please make sure that you put the name of your school, the town, and an email address on the front? Otherwise, we can't use it. We have to be able to verify it, match it back to a unique reference number. But if you prefer, log into the link that's in the letter on the front of it, and please do it online. At the moment, the responses from Wales are not very good. So please fill it in if you haven't done already, so that we can actually write a report and we can give it to the Welsh Assembly and initiate a debate about language teaching in Wales on your behalf. I'd be really, really grateful. So thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr, and thank you.
Dylan ni wedi dweud hefyd, I should have said at the beginning that all the presentations today, we've saved a few trees, I haven't made copies, okay? So they will be available to download from our website within the next couple of weeks. Give us a couple of weeks to sort things out, but they will be available for you to download. You'll also notice we've got a camera man here today. So Ian is helping us out. He's going to be filming some of the sessions. So if you want to review some of the sessions that are happening today in this main room, then you'll be able to do that as well through our website. Okay. We do have a link to the documents that Kate's talked about. This is the British Council survey of the top 10 languages. You can access that through our website or go to the British Council website and look under publications. So without further ado, I'll move on to our next speaker, Greg Horton. Do you need to set something up, Greg?
No, I didn't put it on the bottom. I just need to go into my computer.
You need to do that. So while Greg is just finding his presentation, I'll just give you, if I draw your attention to it, a little bit about Greg's background. He's an advanced skills teacher with 24 years of classroom experience between 2006 and 2011, and he's worked as a lead predictive practitioner as well over the border in England. He's also worked as an inspector and advisor in the Hampshire local authority, and now combines his role with teaching in Wilton School near Southampton. And has presented at some of our events before, so you may be familiar with Greg and may have met Greg before. He's also gained widespread recognition as featured on Teachers TV. Everybody's seen the Teachers TV, so he'll be used to having the camera pointing at him today, hopefully. In 2011, he was recipient of the UK German Teacher of the Year Award. He's also an experienced examiner and assessment writer for a leading awarding body as well. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Greg.
Oh, I'm glad I've done enough to keep you going there.
Okay.
Thanks, Neil. Cheers. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me back again. I haven't been here, I think about 5 years ago was the last time. I don't know if I've met any of you in the past at a couple of events. Have I met anyone there 5 years ago? Oh, brilliant, so I can repeat the same jokes. That's why I asked the question at the start. Anyway, I'm just going to, from time to time, I'm at that age where I need glasses now, and I was actually doing an ALL event in Newcastle on Saturday, so I've had a lot of travelling recently, so please excuse for the camera, the unshaven look actually today. I left my razor at home rushing down after school down the M4 last night. And I wanted to do loads of work on my laptop, taking the train up to Newcastle because I hate